Unprecedented public panic at all levels as COVID cases continue to rise in the country in a very unsettling manner. From Madhya Pradesh to Haryana to the national capital, people have resorted to stealing oxygen cylinders. In Jind, for instance, in Haryana, over 1,700 doses of Covaxin and Covishield were looted in that city. On the other hand, oxygen cylinders were stolen from a hospital in Madhya Pradesh's Damo. Two images, two separate states, two separate locations, manifesting the anxiety and the rumor-fueled actions of many. Let me take you a little closer to what happened in Jind, where 1,710 vaccine doses were stolen in the town overnight at the PP Center General Hospital. Thieves broke a freezer in which the vaccines were stored. Authorities report that certain files and documents regarding the vaccination drive in the district were also looted as part of this crime. The vaccine center had no security guard or CCTV cameras installed. The police have registered a case against unidentified persons and is investigating the incident. Well, after this robbery, the Jind district administration now has no vaccines.
सुबह स्वीपर आया हमारा, उसने बाबूजी के पास फ़ोन कराया कि बाबूजी ऐसे ऐसे ताले टूटे हुए हैं और बाबूजी ने फिर मेरे पास फ़ोन कराया कि शीला देख एक बार अपने वैक्सीन संभाल, सारे फ्रीजर और ये सारे मतलब खुले हुए हैं और नीचे वैक्सीन पड़ी हुई है, कौन सी चोरी हुई कौन सी। तो मैंने जैसे 10 मिनट में आई तो देखा कि कोविशील्ड की एक सिंगल डोज भी नहीं बची हुई, मतलब सारी की सारी गायब। कोविशील्ड 1270 थी और कोवैक्सीन 440 डोज थी।
तो कितनी चोरी हुई है मैडम?
सारी की सारी चोरी होगी, एक भी सिंगल डोज भी नहीं बची हमारे पास।
जिस तरह से पता चला है फुटेज से कि दो लड़के करीब 1 बजे आते हैं और फिर 1 बजे के बाद वो कुल 20-25 मिनट में यहाँ से निकल के जाते हैं और वैक्सीन यहाँ सिविल हॉस्पिटल से ज़रूर चोरी हुई है। किसी न किसी जानकार का लगता है कि भाई इस विषय को वो जानता है कि मैं इसको चोरी करके कुछ कमा सकूं या कुछ इस तरह का लगता है।
India Today's Manjeet Sehgal is live with me. Manjeet, you know, shocking story. This was in Jind in Haryana, where over 1,700 vials of vaccine have been stolen from that area. Obviously, this means that people are in total panic and trying to get vaccine at a time when there is already a crippling shortage and there is, you know, chaos at every level. This is a, you know, a clear sign that there is panic on the ground.
Yes, indeed, Shiv. This is the first of its kind theft reported in Haryana when the burglars stole 1,710 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. This includes 1,270 cold Covishield and 440 Covaxin doses. The theft took place on Wednesday night. Two people reportedly stole the vaccine, but surprisingly, Shiv, rupees 50,000 cash besides a laptop and other vaccines were also in the same store, which was locked, and the thieves broke 4 locks but did not steal any other item except the COVID-19 vaccine. Earlier there were reports that there is no vaccine in this government hospital, but now authorities have clarified that enough doses are already available. 6,000 doses have been made available and the inoculation is going on as usual. But so far, the people involved in this theft are beyond the reach of the police, and this is how Haryana's the health department's carelessness has come to the light. Remember, Haryana is the second state in the country which has been accused of wasting the COVID-19 vaccine.
Absolutely criminal. And now the Jind town has Jind district has no vaccine left at a time when, you know, this kind of panic could spread to other places, to even the big cities. What if people take matters into their own hands? Thanks very much, Manjeet, for that. Let me list out for you some of the other incidents. It's not just Jind and Damo. There's been a loot of oxygen cylinders also in Jind. Imagine. Obviously, lots of crime happening in Haryana's Jind. Oxygen cylinders have also been looted in Jind. Oxygen cylinders have also been looted in Damo in Madhya Pradesh. There's been a rampant loot of remdesivir tablets in Jaipur, the capital of Rajasthan. There's been the loot of Covaxin in certain other areas, loot of remdesivir in Madhya Pradesh's Bhopal and Indore as well. So this is a scary situation. I've given you examples of this kind of looting happening in 3 states. But please remember, there are states where there isn't such panic. But in the states where the numbers are high, this panic is increasing. And that's leading me to ask these big questions right now. Could panic trigger unrest? You're seeing these huge crowds at hospitals every day in the national capital, in Mumbai, etc. Could this trigger something bigger ahead? Spiraling cases, no specific reassurance from the government. TV and social media are reflecting the scale of the panic and the crowds. You saw what happened in Nashik as well. WhatsApp groups and forwards, which we are all part of, they are playing their own role in triggering families and communities and making them scared of something which may not be real. With the system completely overwhelmed, individuals are hugely anxious right now because there is an every man for himself mentality that is setting in. People have started to lose faith that the system will protect them, and it's become an every man, every woman for himself, herself that is setting in, and that is something that could be extremely dangerous. Here are some more questions that we need to ask. Is the law and order machinery of this country prepared for eruptions going forward? It's not just in villages and towns, but in cities that people are extremely anxious. Could overwhelmed hospitals spark violence, possibly even riots going forward if things don't settle down? Question number 3. Could misinformation trigger widespread looting? Currently, the looting is only happening in small pockets, but could it become bigger as the shortages increase and the rumors increase? Why are there no specific assurances beyond the very vague appeals we're getting from our political leaders? And number 5, will security forces need to be deployed? Is that a conceivable situation going forward? Whether it's the Rapid Action Force or CRPF or whatever it is. Could we be looking at a situation where security forces need to be specially deployed to keep the peace in the face of public anxiety, panic and anger? Joining me live, Vikram Singh, former Director General of Police of Uttar Pradesh, is with me live. Also with us is Dr. Swapneil Parikh, who's author of The Coronavirus, one of India's best known physicians and someone who's been writing extensively on what has gone wrong ahead of this second wave. Welcome to you both. Dr. Swapneil Parikh, I'd like to come to you first. You know, there's a lot of panic. There's a lot of panic, you know, on social media. There's a lot of panic on the ground. I'm sure, you know, television plays its own role in amplifying a sense of, helplessness among people who think that there are shortages of medicines, shortages of oxygen, which are very real. How do you see this, Dr. Swapneil? Because with every passing day, the numbers are rising, the pressure on the system is increasing, and there is a real sense of helplessness that is setting in at the individual level, which is why people are going out there, at least some people are going out there, looting vaccines, looting medicines and the like.
Hi, Shiv. Very difficult times in our country. And, you know, of course, there are oxygen shortages. We should have been more prepared with manufacturing more oxygen. The supply channel should have been better established. But what we need to remember is no matter how much we scale the healthcare system's capacity to respond, even if we double our oxygen supply, uncontrolled exponential growth will always breach the line of the healthcare system so scaled. We need to do both things. We need to scale the health system's capacity to respond, but equally, perhaps more importantly, we need to reduce the number of infections, flatten the curve. Only when we flatten the curve, only when we reduce the number of infections, can we keep things under control. If we allow exponential growth, whatever new capacity we build, it will last us for a few days, maybe for a week, and eventually we'll be back in the same crisis.
That's very disturbing. And Vikram Singh, you know, until the curve is flattened, you know, the impact of rumors, the impact of this anxiety is only going to increase more and more. You know, right now we're seeing looting in some of the small towns of Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, etc. this could easily lead to civil unrest. So we are seeing, not just the underprivileged, but the middle classes facing horrifying situations, getting access to hospital beds. This is clearly a situation that can be triggered into something worse.
Absolutely, Shiv. I would first blame the district administration and the police administration for being lax and indifferent. Lax because what happened in Jind was totally preventable.
Yes.
That there was no watch and ward, there was no security, and the CCTV wasn't there at all. And in any case, nobody has any clue. One would have anticipated such a situation and taken adequate precautionary measures. The helplessness, and I would say the sinking feeling in the members of the public, because there is no reassurances, there is no word of comfort and solace from the administration. To the contrary, there is an endless wall of China where nobody can penetrate and meet the doctor, meet the police officer, or meet the administrator. Under these circumstances, there's bound to be depression, there's bound to be anguish. But nevertheless, if the reassuring hand of the administration had been there, this situation in Jind, Damoh, Jaipur, Bhopal, Indore was totally preventable. It is the job of the administration to keep the people informed and in good humor, in comfort level, so that these things do not happen. I, in my own lifetime, have seen food riots, and this is for the first time and hopefully the last time that there is pilferage and looting of medicines and essential medicine supplies like oxygen. This is punishable, and if it is profiteering,
yes,
my advice to the administration would be to book them, come down with a heavy hand, and ensure that they're booked under the National Security Act. But if they're the people, well, I would not comment at that. If there are sufferers, if they are at the receiving end, well, there has to be a different treatment for them. But of course, such incidents cannot be condoned, and action as per law has to be taken. And the administration and the police department had better be alert and should never be caught on the wrong foot, as they have been caught in the last 48 hours.
Dr. Swapneil Parikh, there's a helplessness that is setting in. People are increasingly feeling that they are not privileged. Nothing is going to stop them from being in this horrible situation tomorrow. People who have contacts, people who have access, everybody is affected by this. You see people who usually have a lot of access on social media asking for help, asking for a bed, asking for oxygen. How do you address this kind of anxiety? Is there any way to contain it? What would you say to people out there, even when the situation is so bad?
Shiv, it's an absolute moment of national crisis. It's a disaster unfolding before us. And the sad reality is that all the hospitalizations, the deaths, the strain on our oxygen supply that we're seeing today, that's because of infections that occurred 3 weeks ago when the numbers were much lower. The record numbers that we saw in the last 24 hours, those are going to reflect on our healthcare system over the next 3 weeks, no matter what we do. We can't do much about those who are already infected. We can't stop those infections that have already occurred. But we have a duty to prevent future infections. And unless we stop the tide, unless we stop the surge, I can't even call it a wave, because when you look at the graph, when you look at the epi curve, it actually looks like a wall.
Yeah.
It looks like a wall of COVID-19. And unless we do something drastic to reduce the number of infections, there's nothing else much that there's no solace we can give. Imagine oxygen is something that is freely around us all the time.
Yeah.
But in a moment of crisis, something that is in every breath we take, we struggle for it. And it's extremely sad that we're in this completely predictable and completely preventable crisis right now. And I feel great sympathy for people who have relatives in hospitals who they know they desperately need oxygen. And those hospitals are putting out pleas on social media. You mentioned that even the influential people are putting out pleas. It's changed. About maybe a week ago, it was people putting out pleas, but now it's hospitals putting out pleas on Twitter saying we're running out of oxygen. So I think there's a huge crisis unfolding. It's going to get worse before it gets better, no matter what we do. But we can and must stop future infections. That's the only way to respond.
The key is stopping those future infections, because otherwise there is no point. These numbers are only going to spiral and spiral and spiral, and India has no shortage of population that can get infected in this manner. Vikram Singh, one final question to you. Do you foresee a situation, sir? I don't want to paint this doomsday kind of picture, but do you foresee a situation where security forces of some kind will perhaps need to be deployed, if India is unable to contain these numbers going forward? Because ultimately it's going to become like almost a semi-civil war kind of scenario if there are no resources for people who need it.
Shiv, I have listened very carefully to the words of wisdom from Dr. Swapneil, what he said and what he left unsaid. The situation is very clear. I don't see any horizon or rainbow in the future, and I feel that security forces have an onerous task of upholding the rule of law, protecting the people, informing them, and a word of solace by the administration. There is no way that these security measures can be diluted. To the contrary, they should be fully prepared for any grim situation that is likely to happen. Otherwise, they would be quoting the recipe of disaster. I do hope that I'm wrong, but the fact of the matter is that this crisis, a crisis of this magnitude, I have never seen in my career or in my life. And therefore, it requires a special attention, special intervention, and special diagnosis and treatment.
Vikram Singh and Dr. Swapneil Parikh, pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you very much for speaking to us. It's a really difficult time, but I hope your words will serve as some kind of guiding light for people out there that while panic is totally normal, anxiety is totally normal, this is a situation where everybody needs to really put their best foot forward. This is, as Swapneil said, a national emergency. Thank you very much for that.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.